If it wasn't for copywriting, I wouldn't have made over $100,000 on Gumroad. If it wasn't for copywriting, I wouldn't have locked down my girlfriend and turned her into my wife. If it wasn't for copywriting, I wouldn't be traveling when I want and how I want. Copywriting changed my life, and it certainly can change yours. Today, I'm going to be giving you a short copywriting lesson that could change your life and teach you how to actually make money. If you're an online entrepreneur or you're just getting started, pay attention because the tactics in this video are very, very important. Something that you have to understand about copywriting is the art of selling. And many people call it copywriting. I call copywriting magic. I do not call it copywriting. I call it magic. Sometimes I refer to it as hypnotism. And let me explain what I mean. So here is a video of the car that I drove. And that was during Thanksgiving. Now that car is an expensive car, but I get to drive it when I want. I don't have to worry about any kind of payment. So let me begin with this short lesson. Copywriting is all about evidence and words. Let me go ahead and explain what I mean, because a lot of people only pay attention to the words portion. They don't pay attention to the evidence. The truth is that you can create a landing page, a website, that has misspellings, it's designed improperly, it's even in fact ugly, and you can still make money. But it depends who you are, because evidence is a component of copywriting that a lot of people don't pay attention to. Let's imagine Kim Kardashian created a website tomorrow, and on that website she posted shirts, let's say. And on those shirts, she's going to sign every shirt and she's going to send it to her fans. And let's say, for example, she decides to limit the stock and she tells her customers or her fans, in this case on Instagram, that, it's going to be a one-time thing, it's going to be really quick, and go to kimkwtf.com. And let's say that website is disheveled, it looks terrible. Let's say it times out and crashes every now and then. Let's say it looks like it was designed in 1920 or 1990, when the first internet came to be. Do you think people are going to purchase her product? Well, the answer is yes, because she's Kim Kardashian. But if somebody like me did that, do you think people are going to purchase my products? Of course not, because I'm not Kim Kardashian and I don't get the same level of attention that she gets. See, you can't just speak things and ask people to buy unless you have some sort of evidence based on who you are. And it doesn't matter what you're selling. It doesn't matter if it's an info product. It doesn't matter if it's a fitness product. It doesn't matter if it's a product in the dating niche. It doesn't matter if it's a service. It doesn't matter if it's a physical product. It really does not matter what it is. There has to be some sort of evidence and words to whatever it is that consumers are going to be purchasing. Let's go ahead and break things down a little bit more simpler. It comes down to claims and proofs. That's really what it comes down to. If you're familiar with what proofs are logical reasoning scenario infrastructures, which just basically the fancy way of basically saying how human beings think. For example, if somebody is a historical liar, they come to you and make a claim, there's a good chance, depending on the efficacy of that claim, you're either going to believe them or not, right? Well, that's constantly proofs, right? If something is a lie or not true or seems to be false, which is the character of that individual, trying to claim some sort of statement, well then usually 9 times out of 10 their statement is going to be false. So in the same way, that is a two-part component to copywriting. Now, copywriting has a lot more components than just claims and proofs. There's a lot more to it. But like I said, this is a short lesson, and this is all we could talk about today, so let's go ahead and stay on task. Imagine evidence or proofs as in sales proof or trust or reputation. Because let's be real, sometimes people don't even need evidence to see what it is that that they're going to be purchasing. They simply just trust who you are, just like in that Kim Kardashian example, right? A good example of this are people who sell pre-order type products. Like, for example, LeVar Ball with the Big Baller brand. He created these sneakers that weren't even made yet, and people put in purchase orders before they even came out. And there are some rumors till this day that the people's orders have not been fully shipped. I'm not here to, claim any kind of true or falsities on that. But the point is that depending on who you are, you can kind of have certain accommodations made to you by your customers. Or depending on who your brand is, there are certain accommodations made. Let's go ahead and take a look at a product I like to called Alpha Brain. Alpha Brain is created by a brand called Onnit.com, and you can see here how the product looks. Now, this product gained a lot of attention from the Joe Rogan podcast. Joe Rogan would talk about Alpha Brain all the time, about how good it is.
It completely works.
100%.
And
it's all based on science. I mean, we have double-blind, placebo-controlled studies. It's not something we invented in terms of like the actual nutrients and their response to human neurotransmitters. It's all been documented. People have known about nootropics for a long time now.
And I always feel like I'm the
And not only that, Alpha Brain kind of gained the reputation and the trust of being on Joe Rogan's podcast. Not only was the platform huge, but Joe Rogan was a trustworthy individual. People look at Joe Rogan like he's, the bastion of truth. He speaks truth even if it's not flattering. And the interesting thing about it is the product works. Now, would Alpha Brain get sales or get orders without Joe Rogan's help? Well, the answer is yeah, it would. Now, maybe not as much because of the promotional aspect, but if we look at how Alpha Brain is designed, we can do some basic research on the ingredients. Alpha Brain is very clearly open and describes to consumers what their ingredients are. Vitamin B6, that has to do with energy, right? L-theanine has to do with clarity and focus. Okay? Huperzine, which is Huperzia serratia extract. All these different ingredients help with all their claims that they mention here, like supporting memory, supporting focus, mental clarity, speed. All these kinds of things contribute to that. So nobody can sit there and point the finger at Alpha Brain and call them a scam. It's just a matter if they want it or not. So is Alpha Brain's claims considered true? Well, based on the proof of the ingredients, yes, it is true. Now, when we sprinkle a little bit of promotion, a little bit of influencer power, now you have a brand that is bulletproof, right? And once again, everything has an effect. So when you have your words, right? Of course, this website could have been, this is a beautifully designed website. It could have been developed in a completely different way. It could have been developed where the website was ugly, unattractive, and, it could really hurt the sales. However, it's designed beautifully, right? Now, words are not just the words on the page, but also visual flow. If you look at my example of my website, for example, there's a lot of visual flow here. And speaking of visual flow, I'm working on creating blogs on my website. Now, my blog posts kind of suffer from lack of visual flow a little bit. You can see it's kind of like just pure text. Well, I've been working on that. I'm trying to improve that. However, I made my blogs to help inform people. Now, people wouldn't know about my blogs if they don't know about my website, right? But my website in general has some good visual flow. It has some colors, contrast. All these things help with visual flow. So, when you're working on your copywriting, when you're creating your offer, and like I said, this helped me with my software as a service business. This helped me with all my different products. The first thing you have to think about is, what claims am I making? And really, before you even think about the claims that you're making, how do you even come up with claims that work for your product? Well, think of the solutions to the problems, right? And this is where people start to have the problem, is they realize that their product might not necessarily solve people's problems. I'll give you an example. You look at a company like Gucci. Does Gucci solve a problem on the outside? Like, without really digging into it, what does Gucci really sell? Well, it just sells t-shirts, it sells hats, it sells belts. Does it really solve a problem in that regard? The answer is no. But it does solve a problem. We just are not aware of it because they're speaking covertly. They're hypnotizing people without speaking out loud. And what is that? What they're doing is, Gucci is a brand that people may purchase, Louis Vuitton, all these different brands, Ferragamo, Pagani, all these different brands are essentially selling you a product for your ego, right? And people can clearly see that kind of messaging that is covert. It's not spoken out loud. How do we know that? If we go to Gucci.com and we look at their website, or Louis Vuitton, you have this air of elegance, of aristocratic type nature about it. From the way that the images are shot, the models that they choose, right? The design of their website, everything, even their stores. When you walk into their stores, it's a personal experience of luxury. The salesman comes and brings you champagne, and you pick out your clothes. You have a great experience, right? All that spells out what? Spells out luxury. And it plays to your ego. So in this case, it is claiming evidence and words. It is having evidence and words. What are the words? The words are covert. They're not said out loud, but they're playing to the ego. See, you could go buy the exact same quality t-shirt at a Walmart for $5. It's not like Gucci's t-shirts are that much better. But Gucci is effectively claiming to be a brand for rich people, right, who want to display their wealth. And the evidence backs it up. Their t-shirts cost $300 to $500 a piece. Their jackets might cost over $1,000. Their belts over $300. That is a perfect example of a covert way of copywriting. And remember, copywriting is not always words written on a paper. Even though that's what we like it to be, and that's what we think of it to be, it's really more of a tactic. It's more of hypnotism. It's more of magic. And you can think of this lesson as the beginning principles of copywriting. If you want to learn more about copywriting, you can head over to my website and go to the courses segment and click on the CIA selling course. Learn how to sell like a CIA agent. I'll talk to you later. Thank you for watching. See you soon.